What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly Sports History for September 26, 2024. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Thursday edition. Giants, Cowboys tonight. If there's ever a time where I am least interested in seeing a game, it is tonight. It could be ugly for both teams, but I will get the satisfaction of seeing both fan bases suffer miserably. All right, before we get started, some quick housekeeping notes. First, follow me on social media, Jimbo_Mont at Twitter and TikTok, at Philly Jimbo on Instagram. I've been telling you, continue to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Spread the word. If you're enjoying it, that means somebody else might too. So let your friends, co-workers, coaches, parents of baseball or soccer, whatever you got going on, let them know. Spread the word and help grow this thing. If you want information on the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame induction ceremony, all that information is in the chat. That ceremony is November 7th down at Live Casino in South Philly. Ticket information is also available. I will be there, so be sure to check me out. And if you want to check out some of the collection that they have of memorabilia and artifacts, they do a nice job up at Spike's Trophies up in the Northeast. It is open to the public. Just ask them to go back and see the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame stuff. Pretty cool stuff there. One of my favorite pieces is remember the big Phillies hat they put on top of William Penn in '93. They have it hanging in the back up there. So go check it out up at Spike's in North Philly. But all the information you need for the ceremony is down in the description. Doing some good things over there. A lot of good people. Been enjoying my time volunteering, helping out, working on some projects. So stay tuned for some stuff is going to be coming out soon. So stay tuned for that. But any information you need for the induction ceremony is down in the description. And as we're closing near the end of September, it's hard to believe October is almost here. Just want to take a look ahead and preview what we have coming up in October. In honor of Red October, which gets underway, we'll have more on that. But the Phillies' first playoff game will be next Saturday down at Citizens Bank Park. Still to be determined time as well as opponent. But in honor of that, we're going to start off October with some of the best Phillies playoff moments. And instead of moments, because I feel like we've done some of those already, I'm going to just talk about the actual games. They could be down to the wire games, extra inning games, games in which some of those moments came in. But I feel there's been a lot of great games in Phillies postseason history, so we're going to focus on some of the best of that. Then we'll get into our Sixers preview. Going to spend about 5 or 6 days previewing the upcoming Sixers season, because they have less than a week before training camp starts, which is phenomenal. Never been more excited, and I feel like I say that probably every year. And as I always tell you, they are the ultimate Lucy with the football team. I know what's going to happen, but here I am on September 26th, getting all hyped up and pumped up for another Sixers season that I already know how it's going to end, how it's going to play out. But here we go, just like Charlie Brown, Lucy, and that football. And then we'll finish up. We'll start leading into the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Start with our Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame spotlight, spotlighting all of the inductees for the 2024 class. So lots going on in October. Looking forward to it. As I mentioned, the best way to stay in the loop is to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hopefully things will, now that fall ball is winding down, hopefully I'll have some time to really dive into some of those things I've been saying, I've been trying to work on. So stay tuned for that. And before we get into the episode today, I did want to mention that Mayor Parker did speak yesterday, sort of outlining the plans or the details of the plan for the arena down in Old City there by the gallery. She made it clear that that's technically not Chinatown. I heard her say that a couple different times. It's on the border of Chinatown. However, it did seem as though there was a lot of initiatives and a push to kind of help out. As we said, there's like a $50 million, I forget what they call it, but like community something that's built into that. And I really do. I think since that is the neighborhood that seems to be the most concerned, and part of it is losing their identity culturally. I think it's a great opportunity for the Sixers to incorporate that into the surrounding areas, into sort of the building plans and some of the ambiance and the extras that they do around the stadium. Like I said, I've gone on record and I still say it's a great. I love it down there. And I think right now, Jason Kelsey said it best. A lot of people are going to hate it, but once it opens up and we really see what it's about and get used to it, I think people are going to love it. And yes, it's a change, and people don't like change, including me, but I think this is a positive change for the team and the city. And one thing she mentioned that I've been saying for a while now, with the construction of the new arena, they are making a hardcore push to get a WNBA team, which I think is huge. And not only to have more events down at the new arena, but I just think for the city, the state of basketball, both men's and women's, I'm excited for my kids. I know my daughter's going to love it. She really got into some of the WNBA stuff last year near the end of the women's Final Four with Caitlin Clark and all that. So I think it's a great move for the city. I think the WNBA still has one more spot for an expansion team, and it looks like to balance things out, it's going to be an East Coast team. Would love for it to be in Philly, and I certainly would support whatever they decide to name the team. I would be 100% in support of that. So she did mention that in the press conference, which I thought was great, and I think it's long overdue to get a WNBA team in Philly. So if building a new arena is what helps get the WNBA to Philly, double sign me up. The other thing I wanted to mention is I make it perfectly clear a lot of times I listen to WIP throughout the day, various times when I'm at work and I have some downtime or catching up on some paperwork. Yesterday I was driving back and forth for work to Lancaster, so I listened to a lot of the shows. And I just wanted to say, Hugh and Joe Giglio, and Kyle for that matter as well, obviously you're listening. So give me a shout out or have me on your show. I will totally come on. And there's no way you're going to tell me you're not listening, because WIP midday show yesterday, I'm going to give myself a little pat on the back here. They had their Twitter poll question, and their Twitter poll question sounded very familiar to a certain This Day in Philly Sports History podcast question of the day from the day before. They were saying, are you more concerned with Nick Sirianni's decision or Jalen Hurts playing? Sounds very, very much like our question of the day when I said, whose decision-making are you more concerned about, Nick Sirianni or Jalen Hurts? And listen, feel free. I borrow stuff and twist things around all the time. That's fine. Have me on. It'd be a great just cut-in segment. Like, I'm just throwing it out there. So Hugh, Joe, Kyle, I know you're out there listening. Have me on, man. That was the most obvious one I've seen so far. Almost as bad as Channel 10 when they do their Tuesday positivity. So I know folks are out there listening. Just have me on. You don't even have to have me on. Just give me a little plug. Say, hey, go check out Jim at This Day in Philly Sports History. Now, could be a big coincidence. They might not be listening. But I'd like to think they are, because that was very, very spot on to what our question of the day was the other day. All good, though. I love you guys. They might be my favorite show, believe it or not. I know a lot of people don't necessarily get a chance to listen because a lot of people only listen when they drive. But this is how it works, guys. I'll give you a free plug if you give me a free plug. But no, Hugh and Joe, I do enjoy the dynamic between the two of them. But that was just, man, that was exactly my question of the day from the day before. So I either have a very, very WIP minded mindset, or they're borrowing my stuff, which again is fine. Just give me a shout, guys. Just give me a shout. And Sheila Wacko on Channel 10, I'm still waiting for my plug for the Tuesday positivity. Anyway, be sure to check out my boys over the Clashing Conferences. The new football episode dropped. I'm about halfway through. I think they dropped it a day early due to the Cowboys-Giants game tonight. Love those guys. Always good banter, always an entertaining. And then I'm anxious to see when the baseball one drops due to Mike and Lewis with the Mets getting the better of the Phillies last weekend, but the Phillies still clinching and now getting that bye. And by the way, I don't know. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it because of the hurricane, but I think both the Mets and the Braves could get screwed because of the scheduling. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Yesterday's game and tonight's game both were postponed until Monday due to the hurricane. And now they're playing a doubleheader on Monday with potentially the playoffs starting for them on Tuesday. And that's just a tough break. But I guess a lot's going to be determined tonight, Friday, and Saturday. And actually Saturday and Sunday before that comes in. But tough break for them. So I mentioned the Phillies. They did clinch the bye with a 9-6 win yesterday. And then the Pirates, my father-in-law's team, came through for us in the clutch and beat the Brewers, clinching that bye for the Phillies. They still are very much in play for that number 1 seed. They're half game back of the Dodgers, but we have the tiebreaker over them. So the magic number is 4 for that number 1 seed. Christopher Sanchez was not sharp yesterday, but he was good enough. And I think heading into the postseason, there's going to be guys that have days like that. Luckily for him, the offense picked up the slack, and that's going to be the key to me. We'll do more of a postseason preview once we know who the opponent is. But to me, the key is going to be when the bats go silent, can the pitchers keep them in the game and vice versa? And they did a good job of that last night. Definitely showed some pop. Brandon Marsh getting some key hits. Castellanos staying hot. And truthfully, he's going to be a key. Because I don't know. He to me, he's been the MVP of the team this year, the most consistent guy, even when they weren't doing well. So we're going to need him to kind of continue that consistency into the postseason. But as I mentioned, magic number is 4 for that number 1 seed. It's going to be an interesting, great weekend. If you're into postseason and playoff atmosphere baseball, it's going to be a good weekend for that. And again, you hate to see it. And I mean, as a Phillies fan, I'm loving that they're going to get screwed heading into the playoffs. I hope they somehow both can make it into the playoffs and then both have to go through their pitching staffs on Monday to kind of align that up. But tough break for them. But we clinched the minimum number 2 seed, which I know a lot of people are like, nobody's done well yet with that. But I think this Phillies team, that was one of their goals. That's what they wanted. But that leads me to today's question of the day. And if I hear this on WIP, then I will 100% for certain know that someone out there is listening. But heading into the postseason with that bye, what are you more concerned about? Are you more concerned with the bats or are you more concerned with the pitching? 267-495-8531. That's the Back to the Future voice and text line. Call in, get anything Philly sports related off your chest. But let me know. I think for me, it's the same as it's been for the past 3 years. I'm concerned that the bats will all go cold at the same time. But let me know your thoughts. Bats, pitching, what are you more concerned about now that the Phillies have guaranteed themselves an extra week off almost before they play their first postseason game? I think it's good for the team, but I am more concerned with the bats than I am the pitching. But what do you think? 267-495-8531, and then hit me up on any of the social media as well. All right. Phillies postseason, you got to believe. Go to phillygoat.com, get your Believe shirt. Players wear it on the field. My daughter wears it to school. It's one of the best shirts they have. You can get the Go Phils with all the different Phils on it. My voting election shirt should be here early next week. Cannot wait to show that off to you. They got you covered when it comes to the Phillies. So go to phillygoat.com. Use that promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off your order. That's phillygoat.com. Promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off. All right, not much to talk about with the Eagles as they're getting ready to head into Tampa. They, I guess, moved practice inside, and it was just a walkthrough, so there was no official injury update. These were all estimations, but Mekhi Becton did play. He had a cast on his hand. Darius Slay would have been a full participant. AJ and Devontae, no-go. Lane, no-go. So I think a lot's going to be dependent upon the concussion protocol. I don't see Devontae or Lane playing. I know I heard an interview with Schefter, or maybe it was a tweet, that typically it takes guys usually sit out a week during the concussion protocol. And as hard as Devontae got hit, I mean, I will have a hard time believing that he's going to play. I don't know about AJ, and I guess a lot depends on how he feels when he works out, but it's a hamstring, and you have a bye next week. I don't want to necessarily risk a soft tissue injury that's going to linger all season when you have the extra week off next week. So we'll see today. Hopefully they can get outside and practice, and we'll get more information on that. One positive note, though, Sidney Brown was working out pretty hard. I wasn't practicing, but he's scheduled to come off the PUP list, I believe, the week after the bye. I'm not sure how the rules are with practice, whether he can start practicing before that, but he looked like he was moving around and was in pretty decent shape. It's going to be a huge boost to the defense when he comes back then as well. And again, I mean, we said at the beginning of the season, I said 2-2 heading into the bye with a week to figure things out. I would take. Legitimately, though, 3-1 going into the bye would be huge for this team. So hopefully we get some positive internet. I'm all over the place today. Positive injury news this afternoon when the Eagles practice and they make their injury report available. Flyers in action tonight down at the Wells Fargo Center. The game is on ESPN+. Might tune that in. No Phils tonight, so might turn it in and see a little Matvey Mishkov. Excited to see him. I'll be flipping, though. My Temple Owls take on Army. They're 13-point underdogs. Could they get that elusive second victory of the season? We'll see. I mean, hopefully they can build on that momentum they got last week from Utah State. All right, today we're going to go back to 1976. And on this day in 1976, the Phils were scheduled to play a doubleheader against the Montreal Expos. It was supposed to be the last two games ever at Montreal's Jerry Stadium. They would move into Olympic Stadium the next season. Heading into this game, the magic number for the Phillies to clinch the division was 1. In the first game, Mike Schmidt, Gary Maddox both went 2 for 4. Greg Luzinski with a 3-run shot. Pitcher John Longborg actually helped his own cause out, knocking in a run as the Phils won 4-1, clinching their first ever NL East title and their first postseason berth since 1950. So they went 26 years in between postseason berths. First ever NL East division title. For the record, they did also win Game 2, which was shortened to 7 innings, 2-1. And then they promptly were swept by the Big Red Machine in the NLCS by future Philly and future World Series champion Pete Rose. Fun fact about the NL East, though, Major League Baseball switched to the division format that they had in 1969. Before that, the National League, American League was just one big hodgepodge. So from 1969 to 1994, which is when they introduced the wild card, the Phillies or the Pirates won 15 of the 25 NL East titles. So 15 out of the 25 pre-wild card NL East titles were won by a team from Pennsylvania. The Pirates winning 9, Phillies winning 6. So I thought that was a pretty cool stat if you're into numbers and everything like that. And it just shows how dominant the Pirates and the Phillies were in the 70s, 80s, and then the Pirates into the 90s. But cool fact. But on this day, back in 1976, Phillies won their first NL East title with a 4-1 win over the Expos in Game 1. Also happened to be the last games ever played at Jerry Stadium as the Expos moved into Olympic Stadium the next year. Also the Phillies' first postseason berth in 26 years. Sticking with the Phils today for our Philly Sports Villain. And I think this guy is universally considered a villain by everyone in Philly, maybe even outside of Philly, definitely probably in San Francisco as well. And he was hated here since day one, and that is one Gabe Kapler. And where to even start with Gabe Kapler? I guess the first thing to start with, he had no managerial experience to speak of. He was the director of player development for the Dodgers. did a lot with nutrition and culture and things like that, which I think is important. I'm not minimizing and diminishing that at all, but to throw this guy into a managerial role in Philadelphia with the way our media and our fan base is, tough situation for old Gabe to come into, and he certainly, I guess, he impressed them with his interview, and he made an impression right from the start. He was very Chip Kelly-esque. I always said he was Chip Kelly on steroids with his healthy food and sports nutrition. He was a very analytical manager, no matter what, and that's probably the second biggest beef we have with him. And he went everybody has been getting a lot on Nick Sirianni about his decision making, whether it's his decision, the analytics, whether he's breaking from the analytics or whatever it is. There are some things where he says, hey, I go with the feel of the game. Not Gabe Kapler. Gabe Kapler was like, this is my sheet. It didn't matter whether it was in the middle of an at-bat, whether a guy was throwing a no-hitter, a guy was on fire. He went strictly based on the analytics, sometimes and most times to the detriment of the team. All you got to do is look at his first game ever in Philadelphia. Took Aaron Nola out after 5.5 innings, or 5 1/3 innings with 68 pitches, because that's what his analytics say. As we remember, Phillies lost that game and just sort of set the tone at that point for Gabe's managerial stint here in Philly, which only lasted 2 years. And I mean, he doubled down on it. He stayed consistent with the analytics. Still made some. We've been using this word a lot this week, but bonehead decisions, and just never really. And I think there's a place for analytics in sports, but man, he fired up those old school guys, and really some of them were not good decisions at all. So needless to say, booed very loudly in the home opener. And finally, the biggest thing I think with Gabe was a lot of the Phillies' young talent seemed to regress. And we saw once Joe Girardi, some of these guys actually step up and play better. Guys like Rhys Hoskins, Maikel Franco, Zach Eflin, Nick Pivetta, Vince Velasquez. And a lot of these guys did go on to have success other places. And it begs the question on whether or not Gabe's managerial kind of almost like a hands-off. He was like, yeah, but he's putting in effort and broke out the curveball machine and all of that. But 2 subpar seasons with what we come to find out was a very talented core for this Phillies team. Obviously, Bryce wasn't a fan. I think that probably played a big part in Gabe being fired. Of course, he goes to San Francisco, makes the playoffs the year after COVID. But for the most part, Gabe Kapler rubbed everyone in Philadelphia the wrong way. The fans, the media, players. So that is why he made our list as a Philadelphia sports villain. And pretty much was hated since day one. Still, the sound of his voice I hate. I know some he's a motivational whatever on TikTok or Instagram now, but just not a very good manager, at least while he was here in Philly. How's the analytics on that, Gabe? On this day in 1976, Phils won the NL East for the first time in team history. It was the first playoff berth, too, in 26 years for the Phillies, who didn't really stay very long, got swept by the Big Red Machine. They were still about 4 years away from bringing home that title in 1980. Flyers Islanders tonight. Hopefully we get some positive injury news from the Eagles. No Phillies tonight, so I guess you have nothing to do but watch that disgustingly boring and likely hilarious Cowboys-Giants game. I hate both teams, so I don't know. I don't know, but check out the Clashing Conferences and see what Topher and the boys have to say about that. Remember to spread the word on the podcast. If you're enjoying it, that means somebody else will. Looking forward to what October brings. And then be sure to let me know your thoughts. Speaking of October, what are you more concerned about now that the Phillies know they have the bye? Are you concerned with the bats or the pitching? 267-495-8531. That'll get you in. But that has been This Day in Philly Sports History for September 26, 2024. My name is Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Thursday, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.